Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we're trying out a budget legacy deck. So I am quite well known at this point for playing green-black Turbodepths. I have a section of my Discord which is basically the Turbodepths Discord, and I also have a guide to Turbodepths on my channel. And it's been a little while since we've delved into the really budget versions of this deck, so we're going to try a green-black budget build today. We're still doing the same things that you would normally see, so Hexmage and Depths, or Thespian Stage and Depths. That's going to get us a 2020 creature. We can power this out with our fast mana of Petals and Spirit Guides. We've got the same sort of suite of hand disruption you've come to expect, the 4-2-1 split of Thoughtseize, Inquisition, Duress. The reason for this split is the Inquisition can hit the Brazen Borrower, which is the more popular answer for Marit Lage out of the best decks, like Blue-Black Tempo and the Menace of the format in Blue-Black Reanimator. Not this world can protect us. We also have a Sejiri Steppe we can tutor up with our crop rotations and Sylvan Scrying to protect us as well. Tutoring up with Sylvan Scrying is normally to push through blockers, but obviously crop rotation can protect from removal. We've got Pithing Needle and Disruptor Flute to stop wastelands and all that sort of jazz. So yeah, everything you've seen before. We've basically removed 8 cards from the deck and tried to fit in 8 budget cards. So the cards that we've removed is 4 Verdant Catacombs, 2 Bayous, and 1 of each basic. So we've added in 4 Blooming Marsh. This will enter untapped most of the time, as long as it's one of our first 3 land drops. Now, there will be situations where it comes up where this is going to be a little bit problematic for us because the drawback will actually come into effect. The specific scenario is, if we're playing a line where we have Dark Depths, Stage, and 2 lands to activate the Thespian Stage, if this is the last land we play, that takes a whole turn and adds it onto our clock, which is obviously not ideal. But in order to mitigate this, one of the extra lands we've added in is the Yavimaya, which means we have 5 lands that can go alongside the Depths and Thespian Stage to give us the slightly quicker Marit Lage with just 3 lands in play instead of needing the 4th. The other lands we've added in are some Nurturing Peatlands. These tap for both of our colours, which is very nice, and we can sacrifice it to draw a card if we need to. So, 2 different drawbacks on the lands we're running, but I think that's okay. I have played Rainbow builds, but I just don't think you need to be playing Rainbow anymore. It just doesn't seem that necessary. You just have all the tools you want within green and black these days. In terms of the sideboard, though, that's where some of the big changes have to come if you're playing budget. So, we don't get basics in our deck, which means Abrupt Decay is not a good answer for the things our opponents are doing. When you're playing the non-budget build, you've got yourself the Lotus Petals, the Spirit Guides, and your 4 fetch lands and 2 basics. So it's quite easy to find like 1 basic, super easy, and then you can like tutor for the other one with your land tutors and stuff, and then get your Abrupt Decay online and just have that as answer for everything. But we don't get to do that. So we have to split our answers, and this is what we have. We have 3 Dismember. So this is for your Mages of the Moons and Harbinger of the Seas, as well as things like Opposition Agent, stuff like that. Then we have the Force of Vigors. This is to nail moons and ensnaring bridges and that sort of thing. So that's kind of what we're trying to do there. And then this means we're taking up 6 slots, where in the non-budget build you would be taking up 4 slots. So that's kind of a big deal, and it means that our other bits get compressed a little bit too. So we only have 2 pieces of Graveyard Hate in these Faerie Macabres, but we do have the main deck Bojuka Bog off of the crop rotation, which I think should be fine. We've got 2 Collector Ouphes to try and help against these like Karn-Forgy decks. We have 2 Sylvan Safekeeper to protect us against removal, and then 2 Not of This World. So we're kind of losing like a piece of Graveyard Hate and another Collector Ouphe. That's kind of what we're losing by not being able to run the Abrupt Decays here, but I think it should be fine. Sorry, we have 3 Sylvan Safekeeper, not 2. There's been a slight uptick in white decks lately, and I've been enjoying having the 3 Safekeepers. It does change the matchup quite dramatically into those sorts of decks. Alright, that is what we're playing today. If you are interested in this, by all means check out my Patreon. I'm going to put up a free guide to budget Turbodepths on my Patreon. And if you like that, you can obviously pay and find the one for the non-budget build, but there's no point doing a guide to a budget deck and then putting it behind a paywall. So it'll be on my channel, hopefully the same week that this video drops. Alright, remember to like and subscribe, and let's get stuck in with some budget depths. For free, fast, and secure worldwide shipping on high-end singles, classic products, and full sets, check out 3-for-1 Trading. Whether it's the legacy or pre-modern that I play on this channel, or even vintage and old school, they've got you covered. Find them through the link in the description of this video and use my code COWFREE for free worldwide shipping on your first order over $500 or euros. Alright, this is our opening hand for the first round. Looks pretty good to me. We've got the ability to go on turn 3 without any counter magic being able to stop us. We've got answer for Wasteland, which is the one thing that can stop us, and we've got once more time to dig a little bit deeper for something else. Now, we've got a bunch of green cards that we're not using just yet, But we can find like a Elvish Spirit Guide, and that can change things up quite a lot. So step 1 is probably cast our free spell. Nurturing Peatland, that gives us our green source if we want it. Step 2 is we play one of our spells. I think the correct spell to play is the Pithing Needle. Unless we're worried that our opponent is a combo deck, in which case we need to Inquisition them. So, given our opponent didn't do any cantripping, it's hard to necessarily know what's going on over there. Brainstorm can just protect them from the discard spell, so it might not even be that effective. So if we wait another turn, then our discard spell is more likely to hit something that we care about, but we have to fade another turn of our opponent's. So I'm going to play Urborg and play the Pithing Needle. I wouldn't fault somebody for playing the Inquisition here, but I think when they're holding up the mana just to brainstorm and protect themselves... Oh, okay. Underground Mortuary. That's a little bit unexpected. Are we playing Bug Beans, perhaps? Alright, we're going to name Wasteland here. Next turn, we can Inquisition around a potential Daze. Just a basic forest. We could be looking at Cradle Control that didn't have a 1-drop, which is kind of unusual for Cradle Control. They normally do have some 1-drops. Witherbloom Command. Okay, this is feeling very Bug Beansy. Lava Spur Boots, though. We could be on a Pox deck here, which I imagine is going to be a little bit problematic for us. Okay, 6 cards on our opponent's hand. So step 1 is probably going to be Inquisition our opponent. Work out what they're doing, whether we need to hold up green or not this turn. Okay, so they are on Pox. So we have Pithing Needle, Smallpox, Smallpox. How do I feel about all these Smallpox? Not great. What is our solution to beating these Smallpoxes? Uncertain. So I think we take the Needle here. And then I'm going to play this Blooming Marsh. Because if our opponent wants the Smallpox, they can take this Blooming Marsh away from us. And that's still fine. And if they don't, we can then play the Dark Depths and still be able to go by crop rotating for the other copy, for like another copy of our Thespian stage. Or we can do it the other way around. Either works. Now, there is a Ghost Quarter that we have to worry about too. Our deck is kind of designed to beat stuff like Ghost Quarter and Wasteland and stuff. We need to angle ourselves into a few little spots. Grist the Hunger Tide. Okay. So it's going to be a little bit awkward for us trying to get the Marit Lage to play versus Ghost Quarter and double Smallpox. So we can't play around the Ghost Quarter here. Thoughtseize. That's not really going to help the current situation we're in. So I think we're just going to play out this Thespian stage. And then hopefully our opponent will give us a window to get a crop rotation in and go for a combo when they're not expecting it. If we just had all the pieces in play, then obviously they know that they just need to hold up the Ghost Quarter. But they might think they've got a turn here to maybe get some value in a different way. The chances are, though, the Saga is just going to be what they're funneling their mana into. But if that's the case, then they can't Smallpox. Okay, so they will play the Ghost Quarter here. Yep. How are we supposed to get through this one? Okay, they're going to play the Hogak. I think I've done a video with this deck that's already come out. Let's have a think here. What is the line? We can try and copy their Ghost Quarter. Or we can just wait a turn here. Do we think they have a second Pithing Needle? I don't think they do. I'm going to play this Dark Depths. And the idea here is we crop rotate for a Ghost Quarter their Ghost Quarter, and then in response we make our 20/20. That's what we're going to do in our opponent's end step. Now there's a pretty sizable chunk of damage coming our way, and we can't beat the Edict effect, so they could just Smallpox here, which can be a bit problematic for us. Although we can probably beat the Smallpox if they tap out for a Smallpox, because we get to float mana off of this and this, then this goes away, and then we can still crop rotate for the Ghost Quarter for their land as well. So I think we're pretty close to having it here. If there's some random thing here that they get off their Saga that ruins us, then that's going to be a problem. But the Lava Spur Boots is gone. The Pithing Needle's gone. What else are they going to have here? A Mox Diamond? Yeah, okay, Mox Diamond is fine. So we're going to take a big hit now. And then we're going to hopefully just finish our opponent off because of the Ghost Quarter in our deck. Yep, you can create a 1/1. That's fine by me, opponent. Alright, so here is our window to win this game. Crop rotation, sacrificing Blooming Marsh, please. I would like to get a Ghost Quarter. I would like to Ghost Quarter your Ghost Quarter. And then we got the game there. Alright. We managed to wriggle our way through there. Being a budget deck made very little difference to how that game played out. However, things get a little bit spooky from here on out. So we need to keep our Pithing Needle effects. But Pox is kind of a spooky one, isn't it? They're not really going to be targeting our creatures. They're going to be hitting us with edicts. So Not of This World is not really where we want to be. Are they going to have any creatures we need to care about? Probably not. They might have some things like Pithing Needle we want to blow up via Force of Vigor. There's also a case for doing things with our Faerie Macabre here. So, you know, these are probably the cards I'm interested in. And we've got space for 2 of them. If you want any more, we have to cut from here. So, the Sejiri Steppe might be useful to push through a blocker that our opponent has, because our opponent's got a lot of edict effects. So pushing through a blocker might be important. So having a Sejiri Steppe seems like a reasonable thing to do. I think the Bojuka Bog isn't something we really want to be tutoring for, but there might be situations where we have to. It's a case of which of these things are better. I think we're just going to have the Force of Vigors and leave our hand disruption in and go from there. Knowing what we're playing around is really important here. We could board in something like the Collector Ouphe. I don't think that's where I necessarily want to be. So this hand has access to Dark Depths. It has access to a Pithing Needle, which is really, really important in this matchup. It has access to a little bit of hand disruption and can dig for potentially another combo piece or the Hexmage. I think this is a keeper. We don't directly have the combo available, but in a matchup like this, we need to have like tools like Pithing Needle to get through. Thoughtseize on turn 1 could be a little bit spooky for us. Right, the Verdant Catacombs is being cracked. Just a loam. Honestly, I can live with that. So we're going to go to our turn and get a little bit more information about what we want to be doing with our Once Upon a Time. Alright, another Urborg. Not the most amount of information. So, what do we have here? A Bojuka Bog. I think I'm cool just like shutting down the loam right now. It's a slower angle than I would necessarily like, but given the tools we have, I will take out my opponent's engine. So they've got 2 lands in hand. They're probably relying on this loam to find them more action. We've kind of shut that down. But they could just play a Grist. And that's not really a huge concern for us until it digs them into something else. So this is a problem. Because we're going to lose our crop rotation, which is our access to our Dark Depths. So they're immediately going to take the crop rotation and not care about anything else here. Which is always a problem with keeping a hand that looked like this one. We are a little bit exposed to hand disruption. However, I think having the things that allows us to play through the way our opponent's going to be interacting with us. Okay, they took the Inquisition of Kozilek. That probably means they have access to a Witherbloom command or another piece of discard. Underground Mortuary. Yep, we already knew this one. And they found a Loaf from the Loam. Okay. They don't want us seeing their hand. I'm going to play this Blooming Marsh, and I'm going to deploy this Pithing Needle. I'm going to name Wasteland here. So we have access to Dark Depths. So we've got, 16 or so draws that get us where we need to go. Well, actually, it's more than that at the moment. Until we have to fire off the crop rotation, it's like 20 draws. Because we have Stage, Depths, Hexmage, and our tutors. So that's 19 different cards. But if we have to fire off the crop rotation, it means that we have to pick one of the lands. Obviously, we're just going to pick Dark Depths because it's the harder one to access. Because the other half of the combo can be a... Yep, here is the Witherbloom command we knew about. So the other half of the combo can be the Hexmage, or the tutors, or the stage. So generally speaking, you want to prioritize getting access to Dark Depths because it's harder to draw specifically Dark Depths or one of the tutors. Pithing Needle, alright. Second verse, same as the first. Let's jam this one in. And we'll name Wasteland again. And then we have a choice here. We can play out this Blooming Marsh. And then the following turn, we would have enough mana if we were to draw a Thespian stage to go. So I think it's fine to play the Blooming Marsh out here. Don't necessarily want to play an Urborg out because it can help our opponent. And we don't need it because we are playing a slow game where we have enough lands in play. Alright, they have a Boseiju. Unfortunately, we don't have anything to get when they Boseiju our Pithing Needle because we are running a budget version. We don't actually have any cards with basic types in there. So they can get rid of this Pithing Needle and then deploy a Wasteland, and that's pretty solid. And the fact that we don't get to tutor off of this is, off of the Boseiju, is a big problem. Alright, they're just going for the Saga. Makes sense. They need to get some pressure going. This can also find them more interaction. Disruptor Flute, you say? I'm not opposed to having that one into play. I think at this point we're probably doing Urborg. Just get this in and we'll name Urza Saga, I think. Just stop them from getting pressure. Alternatively, we can name Wasteland with this one. So they definitely can't Wasteland us. We think that's better than doing the Urza Saga. So we force them to name... well, we're going to see some action. Okay, they're just getting rid of the Pithing Needle now. We'll shuffle our library and show our opponent we don't have anything that helps here. Alright, so I think we name Wasteland. We know they've got access to Wasteland from the Loam. We ideally need to draw a tutor or something next turn, or one of our combo pieces, before this can go and get a Pithing Needle. Now they have to choose which half, like whether they're doing the Hexmage or the Thespian stage that they're naming. So we do have a little bit of a window where our opponent can make a mistake. They don't necessarily know which one we're going to have access to. But they can also just strap on the boots and start punching us in the face pretty hard. There is a Wasteland that is currently shut off. They can also loan back this Boseiju, but they haven't done that yet. So this is probably our window. Okay. There are some problems with trying to go for it here, right? Because our opponent can go and get a Pithing Needle. Do we think we want to be just trying to beat the Pithing Needle? Alright, our opponent's going to make a construct in the end step here, I think. And then we will activate. I think we are incentivized to go for it now. 2 of their smallpox is already down. We know that they can just go and get the Boseiju back. So I think this is our best window. We lose to a whole bunch of things our opponent has. We keep the one without counters on. It's an important one to make sure you click on the right one there. If they have a Boseiju here, they can blow up this Dark Depths, and it's very, very good. Pretty sure we didn't see them mill over a second Boseiju. Okay, they do still have a second Boseiju though. That's pretty terrible news for us. I'm pretty sure we didn't know about this one. Right, they're just floating mana off of the Saga. That's kind of scarier than if they make a construct, because what are they going to spend all this mana on? I think we've lost this game now, if I'm being honest with you, but that's what game 3 is for. Life from the Loam, getting back Saga and a couple of Boseijus. So we can Pithing Needle Boseiju, but will we have enough time to do that and find our combo? We don't know. We're going to play a few more turns. Okay, they've named Hexmage with the Pithing Needle. That means the Thespian stage is still live. They've named Hexmage because we're already 1 copy down of Thespian stage. But the tutors all find the stage. So I'm not necessarily sure it's correct to name Hexmage there. Purely because we have 7 tutors in our deck that all can find the stage. Obviously we're immediately going to draw Hexmage, but we'll see. Yep, okay, the writing is on the wall here. They know they can just blow up all of our lands and we've got nothing to find. We should stop wasting our time and just go to game 3. I like having access to the Force of Vigor. I still don't think we want the Faerie Macabres. I like having the hand disruption because our opponent has some pretty spooky things they can do. Like with all their edict effects and smallpox and stuff. So I think we're just going to resubmit like this. But being on the play, our hand disruption gets better. And we just get to be front foot forward a little bit more before our opponent can react. Alright, what does this hand do? We can name Wasteland, then we can tutor for Dark Depths, and then we can go. That seems like a reasonable thing to be doing. Sure. Now, we are a little bit all in on this Sylvan Scrying here. Alright, let's see if we can go 3 for 3 with Witherboom Command. So if we name Wasteland here, I'm just going to Witherboom Command away our Pithing Needle. But now we're on the play. That means that the time they spend doing that is going to be less of a problem. Which one are you going to name? Because I got some bad news for your opponent. We've got them both. Depending on what they name depends on which land we play next. If they name Hexmage, we play the stage out. If they name stage, then we play the Nurturing Peatland out. Okay. So we're playing out the stage. This way, if we draw into any fast mana next turn, we're okay. Okay, we don't even need to do that, do we? Do we have a different play in mind then? We don't even need to tutor right now. We can deploy this. We can Force of Vigor away this Pithing Needle. And then play the Hexmage. That costs us a Sylvan Scrying. We don't really need the Sylvan Scrying right now, unless we want to have multiple combo attempts. I think we're going to go for the Force of Vigor line. Okay, that is a very tempting Force of Vigor. Before it learns to make mana, we're going to blow up their land. Not a bad situation for us to be in. A Thoughtseize, that's pretty good for our opponent, truth be told. So we're going to lose the Hexmage here. Now, the hatchery, if they can lose the hatchery and get some 1/1s, they will block us for a little bit, which is kind of annoying. I'm going to play out this Thespian stage. This is safer if our opponent's done something weird like board in Surgical Extraction. They can like Ghost Quarter away our Dark Depths and then extract it. Alright, we're going to see a Smallpox here. A Disruptor Flute. What am I going to name here? What am I going to copy? I'm going to copy this hatchery. So the reason to do this is our opponent has to name Eumidian Hatchery instead of Thespian Stage. So it gives them not only a window to make a mistake, but means other Thespian Stages we draw are useful. And we might also be able to leverage the tokens off of this, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so they named the hatchery, so they've done that correctly. An Urborg. Interesting. So we could crack this Nurturing Peatland if we want to. I think we're probably in that sort of territory. I'm going to activate the hatchery and put a counter on it. A Bojuka Bog isn't really where I want to be right now. I think we play out one of our Dark Depths. This way, if we draw into a Thespian Stage or a Hexmage, we're live. Or a Crop Rotation, etc, etc. We're getting Smallpoxed. We are getting Smallpoxed. Okay. I think we probably have to lose the hatchery here. Bojuka Bog probably has to go. There's a Hogak over there, eh? They're going to be able to play that. I will sack the hatchery. This gives us a 1/1, which can give us something to sacrifice to if we need to do a sorcery speed Dark Depths. But our opponent is in a pretty commanding position. They're about to drop this Hogak into our lap as well. Maybe we're supposed to mulligan for just a really fast hand in this matchup. I can't say I've played against the new Pox variants very much because it's kind of only been around for a couple of weeks. There's the Hogak. Alright, what do we draw now? A Pithing Needle. We've already got Pithing Needle on Wasteland here. So play out this Urborg. What are we putting this Pithing Needle on? Are we just putting it on Wasteland again, or are we naming the Ghost Quarter that we know our opponent is running in their deck? I think it's probably the Ghost Quarter, isn't it? It could be as a Saga, but I think we're going to die to this before we have to care about Saga. This is the reason we left the Sejiri Steppe in, so we can push through the blockers. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we need to hit it in our next draw step. There is the Ghost Quarter that we have named, so we feel smart and handsome. That's good to know. But there is some problems coming our way. So if we take this bunch of damage now, we're not dead if we can make a Marit Lage on the next turn. But we have to make on the next turn. So what draws do we have? Loads. Loads of draws. Hexmage, Stage, bunch of... not all of our tutors do it here, but the crop rotations do. And now let's pause. Force of Vigor on both of the needles, eh? Yeah, that's pretty good. I thought so. No, we're just dead here. Alright, we could not go over the line against the deck with a bunch of land destruction and loams and edicts and smallpox and things. They said they screwed up game one. I think they probably made some mistakes that made it easier for us, but they could have played in a... But I think we could have beaten them if they played properly there, but it would have been harder. Alright, on to the second round. This hand is great if we draw a land and don't get manhandled in any way on turn one. I don't think we get to keep this hand though. I think we need to have something a little bit more stable. Our deck mulligans pretty well. This is not a great mulligan. We got lots of mana but nowhere to go with it, so we're going to 5. We're going to 4. On 4, we probably have to keep something that looks like this. So we're getting rid of Sejiri Steppe and Ghost Quarter, the redundant stage as well, I think. This could still turn 3 our opponent, and that's, you know, pretty reasonable. So that's the thing we need to help the turn 3. So this needs to find us a Dark Depths. It did not find us a Dark Depths. I think that means we're playing to get the Urborg out here. And I will Thoughtseize. Do I want our opponent to know we have Lotus Petal? I don't think so. Nadu, Force of Will, Nomads. Well, that's quite annoying. I guess we take the Nomads. We can still just draw an uncounterable way to go through this game. So if we just draw the Dark Depths, they might not know to counter the Lotus Petal. But this deck might have prismatic endings, so when we play the Lotus Petal is kind of a bit sketchy, because if we play it and it's really obvious that it's the mana we need to go off, that's going to make them annoyed and counter it. But if they don't know, because we play it like maybe a turn earlier or try and conceal what we're doing, they're just going to be like, yeah, you can have this rubbish Lotus Petal, and then we just get to bop them. So we'll see. A Pithing Needle. Alright, let's play a Pithing Needle. I don't think our opponent's deck has Days in. Like the mid-range Nadu decks aren't really running Days. Alright, Force of Will pitching a Nadu on this Pithing Needle. Okay, that's not nothing. So we play this out. We play the Petal out now? Sure. So I guess our opponent could be just on classic Breakfast, but I've been seeing not a lot of Breakfast lately and seeing quite a lot more mid-range. The Lush Portico confirms to me that this is playing the Nadu mid-range build. I think it's the Windswept Heath that aren't seen in the Breakfast decks. They just have blue fetches. That's probably why my brain was automatically like, nope, they're on Nadu mid-range, not Breakfast. Yep, okay, so there's no way this is just Breakfast. So I'm going to be dumping out this little Nadu right now. There it is. So hopefully we can force this under the bus of a Marit Lage at some point soon. So play this. If we draw a card with this right now, what does that actually do for us? We could find a piece of hand disruption. That could be quite important. Let's draw a card. A Crop Rotation. Okay, that's a good draw. That gives us the combo next turn. We just need our opponent to not draw a million cards off this Nadu. Okay, that's a Nomads. Let's see if they reveal any counter magic when we're just going to scoop it up. But they get to draw 4 cards, and then on our turn they get to draw 4 cards. Okay, a Brainstorm that can find counter magic but isn't counter magic. And Endurance buys them another turn unless we can find our Sejiri Steppe. If they find like a Plow here, then we can scoop it up as well, I think. Alright, so we're going to take 3, then they're going to go to our turn, they're going to draw 4 more cards. And then we're probably done. They should do it in our upkeep. Yep, and they are. Another Brainstorm. You got it, boss. A Dryad Arbor, that comes into play. A Teferi Time Raveler. Oh, I hate that one. And a Scythecat Cob. Okay. This is the last trigger, and it's a Ponder. So they're going to be able to see a lot of cards. Oh no, sorry, they get to activate the Dryad Arbor as well. So they have a Green Sun Zenith they can activate as well. I think it's pretty obvious what we're playing. I think we can still win this game. It's going to be ugly though. Let's see if they have a counter spell in one of the cards that we didn't know about. Like, they've seen 2 forces already, and they haven't seen half of their deck just yet. Yeah, you Brainstorm. If they counter spell this, then we die. But in terms of the Breakfast matchup, Breakfast used to be a pretty good matchup for Turbodepths until Nadu came out, and that made it a lot worse. Alright, they had the 3rd Force of Will. We can scoop that one up and go to the sideboard. So, what are we going to do against Nadu? They're probably going to be spending some amount of resources on targeting our creature. That's probably how they interact with our combo plan. So I like having access to the things that protect. I'm not massively in love with the needles because our opponent's not wastelanding. These can name Nomads, which can sometimes slow our opponent down. I don't really like the Duress here. They're a creature-based combo deck, so that can go. We don't need Bojuka Bog either. We do need the Sejiri Steppe. Do we need Boseiju in this matchup? So they might have an Urza Saga package, which means that the Boseiju can be a useful thing to have in our deck, and it's also just a green source. I'm quite reluctant to board those out. So I think we probably just get rid of 3 Pithing Needles. I'd rather have the information about our opponent's hand than have the Pithing Needle on the Nomads. And I think this is where we go here. I think our opponent probably takes the posture of being the control in this matchup. I think that would be correct, but sometimes they can just, you know, slam on turn 3 and have a million cards. So this is turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Tutor, turn 3 Tutor, try and combo on turn 4. That's too slow. Our deck can do way better than that. This is turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Marit Lage. That is more like it. And then we put back the Ghost Quarter, so we have the chance to Sylvan Scrying for protection of our creature to push through. And I believe we lead off on the Urborg. That way, if we naturally draw the depths, we're just there. So out comes the Thoughtseize. Delighted Halfling, Ponder, Ponder, Plow. Okay, we'll take the Plow. That's the only obstacle at present to where we're at. I think they should Ponder here, but we'll see if they agree. If they've drawn a Force of Will, then they probably play the Halfling. Okay, does that mean they've drawn a Force of Will, or do they just think this is the best play? Interesting. Like, our deck does the thing it does, right? So I think we're going to just crop rotate and send this Blooming Marsh away. Did you draw? They didn't draw it. Okay, good. So we get Dark Depths. We play the Hexmage. Our opponent can play a Teferi next turn, so we do not want to just make it right now. Our opponent is not a Wasteland deck as far as I'm aware. I've not seen these 90 mid-range decks trying to squeeze in a Wasteland. I think that would be a bit too greedy for their 3-color deck. Especially when they're a 3-color deck that's trying to play up the curve to 3-drops. Okay. They're playing the Brainstorm. Are they dead? So they might try and... Oh, a Surveil land. That is horrible news. Like I said, they might try and just play a white source and be like, okay, maybe we have it. And then try and get us that way. All right, let's just make it 2020. I don't know what they can have for 0 mana. Yeah, nothing. This deck doesn't play Solitude either. Doesn't have enough white cards. All right, that seemed relatively effective. On the draw, do we need to do things differently? Do we need to have like a removal spell like a Dismember over this Pithing Needle? I think that's probably a reasonable change. So the reason I like the Disruptor Flute here is we can name the Source to Plowshares as well and just make it so their interaction is very difficult. I think I'm going to go with this. This hand doesn't play Magic, so we have to mulligan. This hand doesn't have access to our combo. This hand does have access to the things we require. We'll keep this one. So we want the Dark Depths and the Blooming Marsh. We want the Crop Rotation is probably our most efficient tutor. But we need to fire off 2 Crop Rotations, so we need an additional land. We get rid of one of the Scryings, and I think it's one of the Crop Rotations here. So we can Scrying, and then we can Crop Rot. Or other way around, if you wish. Alright, Delighted Halfling. So we could be looking at a turn 2 Nadu here. A Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. Does that change anything for us? Maybe a little bit here. If we go for the Yavimaya, we could Crop Rotate or Sylvan Scrying. I think we want to Sylvan Scrying now to see if we can get a Force of Will taking a Nadu out of our opponent's hand or something. Okay, that just worked, did it? Okay. We've got the Thespian stage. So we have the combo. We have a piece of protection. But we need enough time for this to work. And that might be difficult. We didn't draw any hand disruption. Our opponent's not doing anything over there. This would be a good turn to draw a Thoughtseize or something. Our opponent could just play a Nomads, but no. They're just holding up their mana. Alright, this is pretty good. So I guess we play out this Thespian stage. And we deploy a Sylvan Safekeeper. That's going to protect us from removal if our opponent's trying to play the control role here. This might also force a force out of their hand. We do need to make a decision about what we're doing if our opponent tries to remove our Safekeeper. Are we sacrificing a land to make sure that we have the protection, or do we need to keep the land in place so we can go next turn? We could also Crop Rotate away and try and get our hands on a Sejiri Steppe to protect our Safekeeper instead. That is an option available to us. Alright, looks like we're going to get some sort of Prismatic Ending style effect. So, what is our plan here? I don't really like getting rid of our Yavimaya. That sets us back too far. I think we're just going to take the hit on this Safekeeper. It's already worked like a duress on this Source of Plowshares. Alright, Caracas, you say. Well, that is not my best friend. Now, we have an answer for this. We're playing Ghost Quarter in our deck. A Sylvan Scrying, you say. So if we play out this Dark Depths, our opponent isn't allowed to tap out of this Caracas. So this is kind of like a weird Richard Port situation where they can't use this Caracas. And then next turn, we can play the Blooming Marsh. The Blooming Marsh is going to come in tapped, isn't it? That's kind of a big deal. Maybe we're supposed to play that with Blooming Marsh instead. Yeah, I think we could have done things a little bit differently there. So play this one tapped. Is it better? Now our opponent's got like all this mana. Is it worth us trying to stop our opponent? I don't think it is. I think we're just going to go and get like a... Let me just fetch the Ghost Quarter here. Yeah, we could have done that last turn and we would have been in a better spot. I think I was overvaluing keeping our opponent's Caracas as a thing that they can't tap away from. But I think maybe we're just supposed to go a little bit underneath what our opponent's doing there. Now we do have a Dismember. We can fire that off to try and break up their combo. 4 mana. This is a green sun for the Nadu. Yeah. So they can Caracas this if we try and kill it. But we don't need to kill it just yet. So now we have access to all the protection in the world here, right? We can get a Sejiri Steppe here. We've also got the thing to stop the Caracas. We're okay. Our opponent's got 4 cards. We need to make sure they don't combo us, though. A Ponder. That's a pretty good way to find the piece to combo us with. Another Ponder. Okay, that is reducing their available mana here. So in our opponent's main phase, we need to fire off this Ghost Quarter so they don't have white mana floating in the end step. So they can't fire off 2 removal spells. Sylvan Safekeeper. Interesting. I think our response here has got to be shoot the Nadu. A Brainstorm on top. Okay, it's not too scary for us. Now, do they want to save their Nadu here? They do not want to save their Nadu. Understood. Alright, you got Safekeeper. They're going to attack us for 1 here, I assume. Nope. Okay, so in their second main phase, I will attack this Caracas. And now we have to make a decision about how we're playing around this. Are we making it now and... like, we can go again next turn, right? So I think we are supposed to go. If they have a removal spell, it's annoying. But if they wait till our turn, then we get to protect it anyway. They shouldn't wait till our turn. But sometimes people do. They like to play instants at the last moment. All right, we got through to our turn here. This is a very frustrating card to have drawn. That is a real pain. All right, I'll play out this Dark Depths. And we will attack with our 2020 here. All right, so we're going to get plowed. And because we drew the Sejiri Steppe, we don't get to protect our creature. That is a real kick in the teeth. We're going to do this now anyway. Or we're going to do this anyway. So we may as well do it now. Let's see if they react to this crop rotation. They might scoop. All right, they had a Force of Will as well. Yikes. Okay, so if the Sejiri Steppe being drawn didn't actually end up mattering as much. All right. Our opponents had quite a lot of tools against us here. Now they're going to fire off this Brainstorm that we know about. We've got a lot of life to work with, but this isn't really a game about life totals. It's a game about resources and how many our opponent can bring to bear against what we're trying to do. And if they manage to set up their combo, then obviously they can bring to bear everything you could possibly imagine. Outland Liberator is a good way of blowing up Pithing Needles. Alright, so they're out of cards now. We've got a reasonable cushion of life. Vampire Hexmage is a terrible draw, so that's probably what we're going to draw now. An Elvish Spirit Guide. We could save this Sejiri Steppe. However, if we play it out, it makes our crop rotations way better. Is that true entirely? I think it is true, isn't it? So, if we have a crop rotation, or like if we have a Sylvan Scrying, we want to be able to have more mana available. So yeah, we do have to play this out. So if we draw Sylvan Scrying, we can cast Sylvan Scrying, go and get our Thespian stage and jam. Whereas if we don't play this out, we don't get to do that. This also taps for green because of Yavimaya. Yep, so this is what? 3, 4, 5, 6. So a pretty measly amount of damage. We just need our opponent to not have some great rips. Alright, we have a Nurturing Peatland. I think I would like an extra card, please. A Blooming Marsh, not the one. So the Nurturing Peatland actually coming in, I wouldn't say clutch here, because when we might not be winning this game. But the text on it is certainly relevant. And that is text that you would not get if you were playing like a Bayou or whatever. There is the Hexmage. Okay. So we could also be like manually unfreezing this Dark Depths. That's something we can start doing now, but this is a 4-turn clock. I don't think it's worth manually unfreezing the Dark Depths. Like if you're playing in like a high level competitive tournament, you should probably be thawing these out just to get that slight edge, but it's just not going to be relevant here at all for us. So it's not worth the clicks on my time. Not of this world. Okay, that's not the one we want. Are we in playing out this stage of the game? Possibly. If we play this out, it does give us a little bit more time. Alright, let's play this out. Just can chump block a 3/3, or it can stop these from attacking. So either way, it's going to reduce the clock a fair amount. We need a black source, or a Thespian stage, or a crop rotation, or a Sylvan Scrying. So that is quite an enormous amount of cards in our deck that are pretty good right now. Now, our opponent has 4 cards in hand, but we do have some protection here. Another Vampire Hexmage. Cool. It's just not really where we need to be, is it? Urborg is probably the best draw for us because it allows us to attempt 2 Hexmages, and maybe the first one gets Force of Willed, and that would be pretty good for us. It also flip back this Frenzied Trapmaker, Breaker even. It's going to put us to what, 8? There's still some game left to play. There is the Urborg. Alright, so here goes nothing. Can I have a Hexmage? Please Force of Will this. I'd rather you pitch cast a Force of Will, but I'll take a hard cast Force of Will. Alright, there it is. And then we go again. And here we are. They have 2 Fairies in their deck, so I'm not going to make the 2020 until we have to. We're not playing around Wastelands. Our opponent doesn't have those. We've certainly put ourselves in a position to win this game. It's up to our opponent. We've put them in check. Now, we have a little trump card here that might be enough. Scythecat Carb. I don't care about you. We've got a land that's fewer things they have to interact with. A Sylvan Safekeeper. Sure. I'm going to attack with these 2. That is a weird attack. Because they can't put a counter on this. And this has first strike. What am I missing here? Alright, we'll get our first strike damage. Do I want to just force them to put a counter on this? Do I care? I don't think so. Alright, first strike damage, please. Because the second trigger will only double the counters. So they can make this into a 3/3. But they can't do anything to this Outland Liberator. Ah, they've made a mistake here. This won't do anything. It's not the second time it targets a creature, it's the second time it resolves. So we get to first strike down their guy for free. Now, do I think this matters? Probably not. What matters is what's in their hand right now. Let's make a 2020. Alright, and we managed to get the game there. So we took some relatively patient lines, I think. We could have tried to go a little bit faster at times, and we did kind of need to draw into something to finish the game. But like I said, we had any black source, our tutors, our stages, you know, that was quite a lot of stuff that would allow us to continue playing that game. Alright, let's go to round number 3. So this hand is turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 go and find our combo piece, turn 3 combo. That seems pretty reasonable. We can take time off to Pithing Needle if we need to. We also have Boseiju, which can answer the occasional spooky problem. Boseiju is also a way that we can beat like Blood Moons. If we can find ourselves an Elvish Spirit Guide or a Lotus Petal. I will keep this 7-card hand. 5 cards in our opponent's hand. Are we just going to get wombo comboed? Possibly. 4 cards. Okay, here we go. I feel like they come from Sesame Street. Just counting down here. Going to have a bad time, I suspect. Which is not really how you should envision your opponent going down to 4 cards. It should be, oh, awesome. Good news for us. But I got the impression they're going to be a deck that can go underneath us. But maybe they're not, and maybe our Thoughtseize gets to completely blow apart their hand when they're waiting to draw like the one piece they need. But we might just be getting Echo of Eons. A Yavimaya. Expedition map. Huh. What are we doing here? I could... Okay, we can Thoughtseize and Pithing Needle here if we want to. I think I'm going to play out this Thespian stage. And play out this Lotus Petal. And then I'm going to Thoughtseize my opponent off of the Lotus Petal, Dark Depths, and Thespian stage. Okay. Okay. I see what's happening here. Dark Depths and Thespian stage. They can't play them both next turn. We have a forest. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. Maybe we're supposed to just... But if they go Expedition Map, they just go and get Urza Saga, and that's real pain for us. I think we're just going to name the Expedition Map here. So we have this Boseiju as well, which is how we can get through what our opponent's doing. If they play out the Dark Depths, then they can just help us combo. So they really don't want to do that. Bojuka Bog isn't the one here. I don't think we get to hold open this Sylvan Scrying here. Because our opponent could just make a guy next turn. So let's just go for this Urborg. So if we'd have had the Lotus Petal, we would be able to respond. But I think it might end up better for us if our opponent just goes for it. Once upon a time. All right. I think our opponent is just playing like the mono green, like turbo lands build, which I think is pretty sweet. A wasteland, you say? Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. Exploration. You've got it. Down comes the Turbodepths. Or maybe not. I think now is a good window because we don't have enough mana to copy it. Now they might expect us to have something else going on. But if they wasteland us, we can just Boseiju the Thespian stage. And that's reasonable. So whilst the Thoughtseize never got to take a card, it did give us some pretty important information about how to play this one out. I will play out a Nurturing Peatland. And I'll pass. I'd like to wasteland my Thespian stage. It's gone. It's out of here. So we let it become a copy. And then they choose which one. And then the triggered ability goes on the stack. And then we Boseiju it. So goodbye, Turbodepths. And I will use the green mana that you've provided so generously with your Yavimaya. They will be able to get probably a basic forest, I imagine. They might have other colours in there. But I think once upon a time generally means they're on the mono green build. Like Malevolent Rumble and stuff like that. Nurturing Peatland. We have a Sylvan Scrying. We don't know what we're scrying for yet, which is kind of awkward. I could just draw a card here. Honestly, I think that's fine. Just take a card, because if we get more information, it makes our other choices better. Do I want to Bojuka Bog and make sure a Life Alone doesn't do that much? I think that's actually a pretty good line this turn. They draw alone, they don't just get to resend the combo. And it gets his tap land out of the way. Lava Spur Boots, you got it. It's going to be a weird low resource game here. A Disruptor Flute. I don't hate that one. Again, we don't know which land we're going for yet, so we're just going to cool our jets a little bit. Because if we go and shoot for Dark Depths and just immediately draw a Thespian stage, then immediately draw like another Dark Depths, that's going to feel bad. I think this is a pretty good time to just crack this Peatland and just get deeper in our deck. So the budget card actually being pretty good here. A Crop Rotation. Okay, that is a step in the right direction for us. So I think we go for a Sylvan Scrying here. I will go and get the Thespian stage, because if we play at Dark Depths, our opponent draws Thespian stage, then they just get to tee off on us. And that's not what we want. So we'll play out our land for turn. Next turn we have the combo. Should be a good turn for our opponent to draw like a Wasteland or a Caracas. Obviously not a great thing for us to endure. Okay, Mox Diamond. This is going to cost them a card, so... Alright, it's a land they couldn't play. Life from Alone, getting that back. That is fine. Another Thespian stage. Alright, we can play out this Nurturing Peatland, I think. And we get to use our Disruptor Flute as well, if we need to. So we can see what they draw. Boseiju Who Endures. Alright, I assume they're going to target that. When they target that, we will put the Disruptor Flute in. Boseiju Who Endures. Sorry to do that to you, Mr. Boseiju. It is still an activated ability, so this does shut it off. It doesn't care where the activated ability is being activated. This doesn't affect things in play. It affects things everywhere in the game. And then we crop rotate away our Bojuka Bog using this Spirit Guide to go and get our thing. And then we're ready to go because there is an Urborg and a Yavimaya in play. So our Dark Depths is a Bayou as well as being our giant friend maker. Right, so playing out 2 lands. They lose one of their lands. They got 1 card left in hand. Let's go and get the thing. Alright, we got the game. It's quite nice because this is a horrible matchup. Our opponent mulled to 4 and it was still like close at times. Yikes. Okay, so we want Not of This World. We want Sylvan Safekeepers. These are pretty useful things to have access to. Force of Vigor is relatively useful, as is the Faerie Macabres. I don't believe our opponent is playing white spells. But we still need to protect ourselves. But I'm just thinking for the purposes of Sejiri Steppe, I don't think that's necessary. So what are we getting rid of? It's probably just discard is like the worst in this matchup. So those will come out, and that gets us access to like Force of Vigors and Faerie Macabres, depending on how we want them. Which ones do we want 2 of? Is it the Fairy or the Forces? The Fairy can stop them being able to dredge stuff up, but we're kind of hoping to dodge that anyway using our Pithing Needles. So maybe it's the Force of Vigor. And we'll try it like this. If your opponent's playing the lands build that's got white in, then you need to be prepared for Swords to Plowshares, which a lot of the same stuff is going to get covered by. Okay, so this is a turn 3. And we can go and get like another land and do some other stuff. This seems fine. We need to be a little bit wary of wastelands, but we have Sylvan Scrying, which can go and get a Ghost Quarter for the turn we're ready to do our thing. And we've got good action to draw as well, like Pithing Needles and Disruptor Flute. An Expiration, yeah, our opponent's just going to vomit their entire hand onto the battlefield. Cool, I'm happy for you. We do need to play out the Blooming Marsh if we want to get the Vampire Hexmage down. And maybe by playing out the black land, it might incentivize our opponent to get the Pithing Needle off of here and name Hexmage. However, we obviously do have the Thespian stage on top of that. Alright, they're going lower on cards here. They have a loan to finish that off. No, they're all in on Urza Saga, are they? Okay. I think I can live with that. So if we play this one out, I think we're better off Disruptor Fluting something our opponent does. That's going to be our plan here. So I think if our opponent plays like a Wasteland or something, then we can Disruptor Flute it. If our opponent doesn't, then we can Disruptor Flute the Boseiju. Alright. They could get a Pithing Needle and name the Sylvan Safekeeper since they don't know which thing we're going to be trying to combo with. We also have to worry about the damage our opponent's putting towards us. I think we should be able to outclock this. One attack of 20 is pretty good. Now, what our opponent does here. They might just like tap out to try and make... Alright, so they're crop rotating away here. Like, they might just try and go with like a Lava Spur Boots here and just try and get as much damage into us as they can and just try and race. I think that's reasonable when we have protection in play, but we'll see what they get. You have one card in hand. They didn't play last turn when they had a bunch of mana. Now, maybe they were just more invested in doing constructs. So it could be something like a Force of Vigor. I think we're just going to see what they get off this crop rotation and then work things out. Obviously, we need to see what they get off of the Urza Saga ability as well. Okay, so they did get a Wasteland. Okay, so let's see what they get with this Urza Saga. An Expedition map. It's pretty good. We're going to take 5 this turn, so I can live with that. In the end step, we're going to fire and Disruptor Flute. I wonder if this makes our opponent Wasteland one of our Blooming Marshes. It did not. Okay. So we get Wasteland here. That's out of our hair. They don't have a Legends. They don't have the mana to interact with us right now. So we can just go black, black, and get the Hexmage. Play this. Strip all the counters. We get 20/20 with 2 shields on it via this Safekeeper. That should be enough to win this game. They can tutor for a land and pop it, but they've got one card. They've got 2 cards in hand, so they would need to have 2 answers in hand and have an answer they can get off of Expedition map and be able to cast and deploy all 3 of them. So I think we're good. Now they might be able to make their own 20/20. Did we board out our? We did board out our Sejiri Steppe, so that becomes a horrible situation if we end up in that set. Maybe we're supposed to keep in our Sejiri Steppe for this one. I don't think you can afford to have the Sejiri Steppe in necessarily, though. Like, we could have 1 less Force of Vigor or 1 less Faerie Macabre and just keep our Sejiri Steppe in, and that might be okay here. But generally speaking, I quite like to just board out in the mono-green lands matchup because the other slots we're getting are more important, right? So being able to like hit their like Urza Sagas or take their Moxes out or their Expirations at the right time with the Force of Vigor can be really clutch, or taking out their Pithing Needle or their Lava Spur Boots, etc. to stop the construct beats. There's a lot of angles there. And generally speaking, our opponents should be backed right off of the Dark Depths plan in their deck because we can use their Dark Depths plan, so they should be boarding out multiple copies of their Dark Depths at the very least. So it's not something we should have to worry about too much. It's more about they just have land stuff controlling us, and then they like beat us up with Urza Saga constructs. And they have the Thespian stages still, which can threaten to copy our Dark Depths. Now, our protection here is face up. So our opponent knows what they're playing against. So if they find a way through, then they found a way through at the end of the day. So we need to have a crop rotation in hand here. So they probably have the ability to tutor for like a one of... Oh, the second I shot off that crop... Okay, we got the GGs in chat. So where they fired off the crop rotation, it took them 1 extra mana. Alright, so our opponent has conceded the match there. I think we are right to board out the Sejiri Steppe there. We didn't need it, but there's different lines of sideboarding that people take when they play Magic. So you get people that like to have everything that is possibly useful in their deck, and you get other people that want to streamline their deck and have like not necessarily everything that is useful in a matchup, but keep your game plan going and have the bits and pieces that you want specifically for the matchup the most, not necessarily everything that you could use. And I tend to board more towards you have the pieces you want, but not necessarily every single piece. And when you play a deck like this, where you have limited slots you can tinker with, then that makes sense. But I wouldn't fault anyone for keeping in the Sejiri Steppe here. But our opponent shouldn't be playing to Dark Depths us anyway in this matchup. And this matchup's horrible, but we managed to win it, so I'll take that. Alright, on to round 4. This hand requires green mana to do its thing. We're on the draw, so we're more likely to hit green mana. We already are a mulligan here with this but we might as well just mulligan. Our deck is pretty resilient to mulligans, he says, whilst mulliganing to a hand that doesn't play the game. Yeah, okay. I will keep a turn 2. Do I want the Sejiri Steppe in hand? Or do I want it... we'll get rid of a Dark Depths and... So we can have this to force our way through a blocker. I quite like having access to green mana if something goes wrong. But then if something goes wrong, what are we going to be using our green mana to get? It's probably just going to be the Sejiri Steppe. So I guess we should put the Sejiri Steppe back and keep the Ghost Quarter. A polluted delta, you say. Basic Island and a Ponder. Cool, it wasn't a Tamiyo. Tamiyo is kind of annoying because it does block for a turn and can give them time to find a way out. I will deploy an Urborg. We have a choice to make about sending it. Because we can send it through a daze without our opponent realizing that we have the ability to send it through a daze, I'm certainly going to give it a crack next turn. Unless our opponent plays a Wasteland right now. There is a Wasteland. Are they just going to Wasteland us straight up? They are. Sure, you've got it, opponent. Enjoy. We haven't played a spell yet, so let's once upon a time. A Blooming Marsh. I will take the Blooming Marsh, and I will play the Blooming Marsh. So we have a turn 3 here. Or, well, I say turn 3. It's 3 turns from where we are now, or 2 turns from where we are now, I should say, because we're sort of slowed down a turn because of that Wasteland. Because we just play the Peatland next turn, and then we can Dark Depths, Hexmage the turn after, and we still have that Spirit Guide to play around a daze. There is a Bayou over there. Are we looking at some kind of Bug Beans? That's what these cards that they've shown us so far would suggest. It is a Tamiyo. They do not have blue mana to pop it immediately, which is something. A Crop Rotation. I could cast Crop Rotation and attempt to win the game right now, or I could play the game slightly slower. If I Crop Rotation here, we can pay for a daze. That might trick our opponent a little bit. Alright, I'm down to give this a go. Let's try. Alright, we're just in, are we? Okay, let's get the Urborg. Let's get the Depths. Play our friend. And then we have to decide what we're trying to fade here. Are we trying to fade our opponent having a Wasteland? I think so. I think we're just going to make the guy now and try and play around Wasteland. We can do it in the upkeep, but some of these decks do run a one-off Stifle, so I don't want to get caught out by that. Are they going to just Brazen Borrow us immediately? We'll see based on what this Tamiyo does. If a Tamiyo attacks... Okay, a Tamiyo is back on blocks. That Sejiri Steppe from a million years ago would be quite nice about now, wouldn't it? Okay, I guess we're attacking. So we've got a Chump Block here. They might have a Brainstorm to Chump Block and flip and still continue to get value off this Tamiyo. Nope, it's just under the bus, is it? Let's play this Nurturing Peatland out. I will play out this Lotus Petal. Do I need to play out the Lotus Petal? Yes, I will. So the reason to play out the Lotus Petal is just so we have more mana to play a Crop Rotation around daze for Sejiri Steppe. If they try and remove our creature, we can crack the Nurturing Peatland and we have a potential rip for Crop Rotation. They don't have an answer right now, otherwise I would have used it. I think it's going to be a Rakshas's bargain at end step. which is a pretty good way to dig for an answer. Oh, it's an intuition. Oh, okay, we're doing a whole other sort of thing here. Yikes. This could be bad, team. Could be bad. Do they have 3 edicts in their deck? Or do they have a combo that goes over top of what we're doing? I don't really know what our opponent's deck does. Or is this the person who plays the Demigod of Revenge deck? It might be Demi Chicking. It might be the Demigod of Revenge Intuition one trick. And that's all they play. I've played their deck on the channel before, and it's very hard to play. You're working pretty hard, but they obviously get a real kick out of it. And full respect to that. Yeah, I think that's what we're playing against here. I knew the name seemed familiar. The green is interesting. Normally it used to be Grixis, so that they could play Seething Song into Demigod. Kaito, Lake of the Dead. Kaito, Lake of the Dead. Interesting. I think we just give them the Lake of the Dead, and then we see what's in the mystery box for them. I think I will do this now, and just make sure we have... Okay, so we didn't find the crop rotation we wanted. So we are a little bit cold to this, but if they go Lake of the Dead, play a Demigod, we can then tutor up our Sylvan Scrying and push through. If this isn't the Demigod of Revenge person, then whoops, I guess. But it feels like it is. I think it's right not to give them the Kaito. That becomes very awkward for us to beat into. Cabal Therapy. So this might just be trying to get some information. They're going to name crop rotation almost certainly here. So using Lake of the Dead as your thing to power up Demigod instead is kind of interesting. They name Not of This World. Do they find an answer? Are we about to lose our little friend? Our opponent has paused a very long time in the resolution of this Cabal Therapy. I don't know what's happening. Maybe there was some Magic Online downtime today. Maybe there's a little bug and they're just sort of trapped. And they don't get to move on. Or maybe there's something they're thinking about intently. But this card should be going to the bin. Although I think we're stuck in the bit where they just need to say, okay, they've finished. Okay, they've lost connection to the game. That makes sense. All right. Hopefully they'll come back soon. All right, our opponent has rejoined the game, so hopefully we can carry on. I'm hoping this was a Cabal Therapy. They wanted more information about our deck, not a Cabal Therapy that leaves us dead. Are they going to bounce us? Because they could have just Intuition for 3 Force of Wills. All right, the Lake of the Dead is in. Like, if they had the Brazen Borrow, they could have just gone and got some Force of Wills to make sure that it resolved. Unsure what to expect. I hope it is the Demigod of Revenge. That'd be cool. 6 mana in their pool. Meringue Regent. When this creature enters, return up to 2 other target non-land permanents that are in his hands. Okay, well, I don't know how I'm supposed to predict this card happening. Oh dear. We are in the dirt here. Looks like we're going to have a rough time against fringe decks today, but we're doing okay into the main decks, so that's something. Okay, so we have this step. We don't really know if we need to be using that right now. Sorry, the Sylvan Scrying, if we need to be using it right now, because we don't know what we're tutoring for. Because we could draw either land. So, do I need to do it now because our opponent has a Cabal Therapy? I think maybe it's going to cost us a resource to do it, but I think we just have to go for it here. We're going to go for the Dark Depths. It's the harder one of the 2 to find. Meringue River Regent. Can't say I expected that. So we could have played out the Dark Depths last turn, but our opponent's already shown us that they got Wastelands. And we've got enough time to wait another turn. Because what if we draw Pithing Needle this next turn or Disruptor Flute? It just protects what we're trying to invest into the board. Alright, Wasteland, Bayou, Life from Malome. There better be some Demigods of Revenge in your deck, opponent. Sylvan Scrying. So the problem with Sylvan Scrying here is our opponent has a Wasteland. But I guess we are priced into doing it. So we're going to get the Thespian stage here. We play out the stage. If they hold up the Wasteland, then we can beat that. If they just go and Wasteland us straight away, then that could be problematic for us. This is all face up, though, because they've seen us tutor for these cards. Alright. Ponder, Force of Will, Cabal Therapy. Just a bunch of stuff in their graveyard. We can also push through their blocker, which they might not realise. Right, there's the Wasteland. They should fire this off straight away. and then rebuy it with the loam. They're hitting the stage. What is our plan here? So we're going to get the wasteland back, right? For next turn. So we basically need to find a crop rotation or a Hexmage. That's all we can do with crop rotation. Oh no, we don't have any basic forests on our deck, do we? Because we're playing the budget build. Otherwise you could crop rotate by hitting your own thing after you've floated enough mana. A Pithing Needle, okay. We're going to play a Pithing Needle. We're going to name Wasteland, and that's going to give us 1 turn cycle to get where we need to be. So we are going to play this Darkdepths out. This means if we draw the Thespian stage, we're okay. And here we go. We've got no green mana, so we can't even draw any of our tutors. Intuition. Please put some Demigods of Revenge into your graveyard. It's what the people want to see. There we go. It is Demigods, and I did remember rightly. So they're going to play the Lake of the Dead, and they're going to reanimate all the guys, then we're going to die. I could... No, I can't Ghost Quarter all the swamps because I'm giving them loads of swamps. So they're going to float the mana here. They're going to make the Demigods, and then we're going to die. Okay. Meringue River Regent. Not one I was expecting to see. So they got bounce spells. They got Wastelands. So bothered am I about their Demigod plan? Like, we can just shut that off with Faerie Macabres. I don't really care that much about it, though. I like the Sejiri Steppe. The Ghost Quarter we need to beat Wastelands here. Bojuka Bog, maybe okay. Like, they are doing like a graveyard-based deck, but I think we just go faster than they do, so I don't think we want to be interacting on that axis. Do I prefer Not of This World to Sylvan Safekeeper? That's kind of an interesting little choice there. I think I'll bin off these Once Upon a Times, and then we'll get access to 1 Safekeeper. I know it seems weird to get rid of the thing that tutors for a Safekeeper, but we're mainly on the Not of This World plan. Because our opponent is trying to do something relatively proactive to end the game, so we don't have necessarily the time to build up the resources to make the Safekeeper really good, like you do against a white deck, where you can just, you know, play out a few lands and then do your combo and just be like, do you have 4 removal spells in 1 turn cycle? So what do we have here? No ability to find Darkdepths. I don't think we can keep a hand that doesn't have access to Darkdepths. This doesn't have access to Darkdepths either. This also doesn't have access to Darkdepths. This does have access to Darkdepths, but it is missing a key component here of having castable spells. I think we just have to mulligan to 3, and this is just going to be one of those games. Alright. So we are going to keep this. What are we keeping access to? Probably Pithing Needle and some combo pieces, some lands and stuff. So I think we're going to lose this one. Well, this is the nature of playing combo decks sometimes. You can just get unlucky and not draw your pieces. It's the price we pay for doing something powerful. Meringue River Regent. Can you believe it? I'm interested to see our opponent's list, though. It's come a long way since the last time I played it, like a couple of years ago. Like, it's in green now, which it wasn't in before. Right, Tamir. That's going to give them a lot of cards. And while they're at 20 life, the -1 power is actually super relevant. As soon as they go below that, though, no longer the case. If we play the Urborg out, it gives them more swamps, but I don't care that much about that. If we play out the Thespian stage, it's not going to make a difference yet either. I'm just going to play out the swamp, the Urborg. It is a swamp technically, but only when in play. Okay, so our opponent's probably just going to be attacking and grinding clues for a little bit. They might have something like Witherbloom Command to like strip away our Pithing Needle. Cabal Therapy targeting us. What do they name here? Crop Rotation? Crop Rotation is a pretty solid bet. Depends what's in their hand, really. Okay, they did name the Crop Rotation. Veteran Explorer. Alright, our opponent is on some interesting stuff here. They're going to ramp here. So we are getting caught by being the budget build here. So we say yes here. Oh, look, we don't have anything we can find. So generally speaking, you're not going to like lose that many percentage points. But sometimes your opponent plays Veteran Explorer. And that's going to be making your budget list without any basics in feel pretty bad. They named Brim's Barone Midway Mobster, which is apparently a real card. So they're going to flip the Tamir. They're still at 20. So they're going to be having the ability to stop our Marit Lage killing them in 1 hit, which is huge. And gives him a whole nother turn cycle. An Elvish Spirit Guide. Do we play this out to pressure their Tamiyo? I think the correct answer to that is yes. It can pressure the Tamiyo. It can also get them below 20 so that the Tamiyo minus doesn't actually matter. Like, we mull to 3. The chances of us winning this game are pretty slim, but it's not impossible. We have a very powerful thing that our deck does. Our Urborg is probably helping our opponent out a whole bunch here. They're just going to put some demigods in the bin. I assume not. If they're doing this in their main phase, they have something they want to do right now. It's also curious... Oh no, they just want the demigods here. It's also curious that they did this before doing the Tamiyo because they could get back a spell. Oh, okay. They haven't played their land drop and they're just going to demigod us. It's pretty good. Alright, so we're going to get attacked for 15, which is 5 less than I like to attack people for. We can kill the Tamiyo with this, but that's not going to save us. Alright, so we lost to Meringue River Regent, which is certainly unusual. Our opponent's deck is really sweet, but it's clearly like a very niche thing that you can't really expect to play around. However, in game 1, like obviously game 2 was just a write-off, we mulled to 3, our hands are bad, that happens sometimes. But in game 1, we mulliganed a bit so that we had to make a choice between whether we kept the Sejiri Steppe or the Ghost Quarter. Funnily enough, if we'd have kept the Sejiri Steppe, we could have pushed through the Tamiyo and killed them, and that would have worked out for us. So kind of interesting how things could have worked out differently. Generally speaking, when you keep 7 card hands with the Turbodepths, you do just win most of the time, especially post-board games as well. But unfortunately, we are 2-2, so we're looking for the positive record in the final round. Let's get to it. Alright, what does our hand do? It's a touch slow, but it has a little bit of redundancy because we have 2 tutors, and we do have a way of peeking our opponent's hand. I think I will keep this one. Let's start off with our lovely Blooming Marsh, which I've not seen this art for Blooming Marsh before, or at least not aware of having seen it before. I do like a little cactus. Alright, our opponent is a bad guy. They're doing mean things. How are we supposed to beat this? If we take down a City Informer, we lose here. If we take a piece of mana, it's probably the best bet for us. Alright, I'll take a piece of mana. And then, hopefully they don't find a land. We untap, we crop rotation, Bojuka Bog them in response to all their stuff going to the graveyard, and then they lose. So probably playing these out so that they don't get hit by discard. They might even play out the Balustrade Spy here. Sorry, not the Balustrade Spy, the other Informer. Did they draw a piece of mana? Or are they just playing out the Informer naked? Please pass the turn. Please pass the turn. Ah, they drew the mana. Of course they did. Fun times. Fun times were had by all. What a fun day. Okay. Anything unusual in their build? There is no green lands and they're on Unmask. Okay. So that means they're more likely to be doing a creature pivot. Well, I made the mistake of casting my discard spell on turn 1, which cost me the game. If I just left up crop rotation, I would have been fine. Okay. Cool. I would like some Faerie Macabres. I would like some Collector Ouphes. I will take Force of Vigors, maybe. Like, they do blow up a Charbelcher, which can be kind of important. We don't care about their creature pivot, though, so that's something. We're not going to need the Sejiri Steppe. The Ghost Quarter does do some relevant things. Obviously, the Bojuka Bog is great. Pithing Needle and Disruptor Flute sometimes do stuff. Hand Disruption, also very good. What are we cutting here? Probably just trimming a couple of Sylvan Scrying, which is not something you do in a lot of matchups, but this is obviously not like a lot of other matchups. We're going to keep in all our fast mana because getting our Collector Ouphe on turn 1 can be really important. What else do we need here? I really just taking out some more Scryings. Yeah, I guess it's not really about assembling our combo that much. And the Once Upon a Time can find our combo pieces as well as finding our pieces that stop our opponent from winning. The classic losing the game because you cast a discard spell on turn 1 instead of knowing you're supposed to leave your mana up. Oh well. But I guess if I'd have not done that, then they would have just drawn the mana anyway, and they would have fired in a Cabal Therapy straight away to see that if the coast was clear or not, and then they would see that we had the crop rotation, and then they play things a little bit slower. So then we'd kind of probably lose anyway, I guess. Okay, we're on the play. Our hand doesn't quite get us where we need to be, although we could, Once Upon a Time, to find a black source, and then Thoughtseizes. If we find an Urborg, then we're absolutely golden. We have the ability to stop a Charbelcher. How many black sources do we have? Alright, looking here, we have, what, 11 black sources we can hit off of a Once Upon a Time. So I take the... So 11 out of 53. So that's a 1 in 5. So statistically, we're odds on to hit a black source with this Once Upon a Time. Is that good enough? We could also hit Faerie Macabre. Okay. So we've got enough hits that it's statistically we're odds on to hit something that helps us out here. Let's have a look. It's a black source. Now, are we going to lose because we cast a discard spell on turn 1? Let's find out. They kept 7, so we should lose this game. That's just generally how this works. Okay. This is all just rubbish, right? They just pivot onto a creature plan, but our deck doesn't care about your creature plan. So Boggart Trawler, playing a bunch of stuff. I guess we just take the Thoughtseize so they can't take us out of having a 20/20 next turn. Sure. Next turn, Depths, Hexmage, bang that in and we're good. Like, they're going to probably spend 2 cards on a Barragoyf. Like a couple of Spirit Guides and a Boggart Trawler sort of thing. Right, they're playing out the Lotus Petal. And they're just randomly drawn the guy that kills us, the Banishing Spy or whatever, then that'll be annoying. Right, Felmire. That is not the one that we've seen, right? So we know what they drew for turn. So we have perfect information here. That's tapped. They pitched 2 Sylvan Spirit Guides. Oh, sorry, it wasn't tapped. Okay. They were tapping it for mana. That makes more sense. Sure. Cabal Therapy. What are they going to name here? Are they going to name Vampire Hexmage here? They named Smallpox. Swing and a miss. You didn't see enough of my deck. You don't know what I'm doing. I'll teach you for winning so quickly. They can sack the Barragoyf to take out the Hexmage. That slows us down by 1 turn, so I don't think that's worth doing. I think our opponent is very much in trouble now. Oh, wow. They really want it. You take that Hexmage. You slow me down by 1 whole turn. Enjoy. I don't think that's correct. And you just got to ride it out. Okay, I'll play out a Thespian stage. What do I even need to name with the Pithing Needle? I don't think there's anything I need to name. I could name the Goblin Charbelcher. I could name Undercity Informer. Is either of those things relevant right now? Our mana's spoken for next turn, so we may as well do this. I guess we'll name Undercity Informer. At least I haven't seen that we've got Faerie Macabres yet. So we're going to need to mulligan pretty aggressively if we get to a game 3. Our opponent should just, like, bang in the graveyard combo. Okay, they've had enough. Alright. Again, we don't care about their fair plan. If they want to pivot into creatures, that just actively helps us, because we should be able to beat that most of the time. Unless something goes horribly, horribly wrong. Do I believe Force of Vigor is going to be useful right now? I think we have to mulligan, really. Like, if they just bang in the graveyard combo, we do lose to that. We don't have a way of getting this off. Our opponent is on 5 cards, though. Do I believe in 5 cards not being enough for our opponent to get where they want to go? I'm going to believe, and I'm going to put back this Bojuka Bog so we can cheer up. Alright, don't turn 1 me on your 5-card hand, please, opponent. We have 2 Faerie Macabre. That's not a lot of Faerie Macabres. But we have Charbelcher beat. We have the Graveyard beat. As long as we get a turn. As long as we put a land into play. Untapped. We're probably dead. Dark Ritual. Here we go. Oh, look at this expert knowledge of the game that our opponent is leveraging. That's cool. Okay, so here we are. They mill their library. They're just going to do the thing and we can move on with our lives. Okay. So we definitely saw part of the problem of playing a budget build this league. So we got caught by not having any basics in our deck a couple of times. That was a bit annoying. We also got caught out by not having the right sideboard cards. Because we have to have 6 answers to various Blood Moon effects between these Force of Vigors and the Dismembers, it means we had to trim on Faerie Macabre, which could have been really useful in that last round. Might not have been useful, but it would have been something. But generally speaking, I tend not to try and build to beat Ouphe spells, because it's a relatively fringe deck at this point. Like, I think it's about 5% of the meta, so it's like, I don't know, 5th most played deck. And you can put a bunch of ley lines in your deck, but you're going to be really bad against the reanimated decks if you've got ley lines compared to fairies. Fairies just better. and I'd rather be better against the best deck. Now, if they ever get round to banning Entomb like they should, then the blue-black reanimator deck that is keeping the Ouphe Spells deck in check is going to be no longer there, so Ouphe Spells is just going to suddenly rise in the meta. If you remember, just after they banned Troll of Khazad-dûm, Ouphe Spells was like the most played deck and winning the most, and it was everywhere until people found out the new blue-black reanimator build, and then it just pushed it right down again. So that's something to think about for the future. But in terms of this budget list, like mostly it just played like regular Turbodepths. There were a few situations where the sequencing of lands could have been slightly more refined. So trying to get the Blooming Marsh out at the right time can be a little bit awkward. We also have Nurturing Peatland, which we did draw some cards from. And there was one game where I think the fact that we drew extra card with Nurturing Peatland meant that we could combo. So definitely a plus for this. I don't think this is like... I think it is worse than regular Turbodepths. Otherwise I'd play this, obviously. But I would say that it's not strictly worse. Like, there are some situations where the cards we're playing instead will be better. So the Yavimaya and the Nurturing Peatland in some situations are going to be better. And sometimes having a Blooming Marsh instead of like one of your basics is going to be better. Now, there's a lot of situations where that's not the case, and we lose some sideboard slots and we don't get to run Abrupt Decay, which is obviously an uncounterable way to get rid of some problem permanents, which is really huge. So you are losing a little bit there. But I think this is perfectly viable as a deck you can play in Legacy. It's pretty cheap, I would imagine. Like, there's no like reserve list cards in here. It's just a bunch of easily accessible cards. I think probably the most expensive card is probably going to be the Thoughtseizes. I don't know how much these are running for right now, like £25 or like $30 or whatever. It's probably the most, and it's, and I guess probably Urborg. Everything else is going to be like under $5, I would imagine. I haven't done the write-up to work out exactly how much this costs for the guide I'm posting for the budget depths. But yeah, this is a perfectly viable way to play Turbodepths. You can tinker with the sideboard if you want to try and get different things in. If you're really worried about more graveyard stuff, you can add in more graveyard stuff and then ease it off on some of the other bits and pieces. But I think this sort of setup is probably fine. You've got a lot of hand disruption, and you can race Blue-Black Reanimator anyway, and you have main deck Graveyard Hate and Bojuka Bog as well. So there's a lot you can do in those matchups anyway. And, you know, sometimes you're just going to get oopsed out. And if you think about the things we lost today, we lost to like the weird sort of Meringue Regent deck, which we could have beat if we'd have kept slightly differently on our mulligan, but we obviously didn't really know what we were keeping. I think we were right to put the Sejiri Steppe back into the graveyard rather than back into the deck rather than having it as a thing to try and push through blockers. Generally speaking, you want this more as a thing that you get off of crop rotation. And then we lost to the Pox deck, which is obviously going to be a pretty horrible matchup for us when they've got loads of edicts in their deck. They're destroying our lands all the livelong day. They've got loam to grind us through as well. It's going to be a tricky one, so I don't really mind losing that one. But, you know, we didn't need much more from our draws to get through that one. So we could have maybe got there in the end with that one. But generally speaking, when you play this Turbodepths deck, what you want to be playing into is tempo decks, Blue-Black Reanimator, stuff like that, mono-red decks, Eldrazi as well. So in terms of like the top like 8 or so decks, a lot of them are pretty good matchups for us. Now, there are some really horrible matchups for us out there as well. You know, lands is not great for us. Now, we did manage to win it today. You can certainly get through, and I have been enjoying having the Sylvan Safekeepers. There's a little bit more protection going on, as well as the extra Disruptor Flute. And the Nadu matchup can be a little bit sketchy as well. But I do like to be playing a bit of Turbodepths, and you can play it on a budget without your Bayous, and it is pretty reasonable. If you really want to, you can play your Rainbow lands, but they're not really adding very much because we don't really want to be running rainbow-coloured stuff in our sideboard. Like, green and black has all the tools you want these days, especially in the current meta. Alright, hope you enjoyed this one. Please remember to like and subscribe, and check out my Patreon, linked in the description. There will be a free guide to budget depths that should go up around the same sort of time as this video, so you keep an eye out for that one. Thanks for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbodepths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbodepths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.